Good afternoon, Sabina. Thank you so much for sparing me some time to join me for this conversation. I'm really grateful to see you on screen today. I wonder if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself to our viewers.
Okay, so my name is Sabena Jameel. I'm a GP and I work in inner city Birmingham. I've been a GP for 26 years. I did my medicine degree at Nottingham University. After GP training, I then dabbled with a few modules in medical education, and I found, I guess, something that resonated very much, that was almost intuitive, and I really enjoyed it. So I went on to get a master's in medical education. I then became an associate dean for GP education in Birmingham and Solihull. And now, for the last 6 years, I've moved to undergraduate medical education, where I'm a professor of medical professionalism at Birmingham University Medical School.
What an interesting career you have. Thank you for sharing that. In terms of what does it mean to be a clinical academic? Can you say a little bit more about that?
I guess I found it quite intriguing, the word itself. And even when you asked me to do this interview, I felt a bit of imposter syndrome because I still don't know if I'm a clinical academic. And the reason I say that is because I took a very non-traditional route. But I think that should give people hope that even if they don't get on things like academic foundation jobs and don't get clinical teaching fellow jobs and don't get academic GP roles or fellowships, it's okay if you still have a passion for education. There are the routes to do this. And essentially, for both my master's and my PhD, because I felt so interested and motivated in education, I started self-funding. But what transpired through these courses was I saw that there were bursaries available that I could apply for. And then when I became a staff member at the University of Birmingham, the fees are very much reduced when you want to do a doctorate. So things work out in the end. So I think I was driven more by a passion than by a set path. By definition, a clinical academic is obviously somebody who's trained in medicine and often works clinically, but also does some form of academic research, be it in clinical or health sciences, or in my case, in education, medical education. So alongside working clinically, which I now do for about 1.5 days a week as a GP, the rest of my time is at the medical school, where my roles consist of teaching, of research, and of management.
I wonder if you can tell me a little bit about the characteristics that surface in the academic role as opposed to the more clinical role.
Yeah, and I'm totally fascinated about this. As professionalism lead, I teach medical students about how to develop professional character and virtue, would you believe it? Many of which are things that wouldn't surprise you. They're things like honesty, integrity. So these are the things, using supported pedagogies, we try and teach in the professionalism curriculum. But having been a clinician for so long, and coming to the University of Birmingham, so higher education, only in the last 6 years, I then had to learn late in life what the life of an academic is like. And this would include things like you're writing papers for journals, and you get the kickbacks. You get the journal articles that you thought were really good or you tried your best at, and then it's either rejected or major corrections. And so I think there's a different form of resilience that is required in being an academic. It's not like the resilience you need when you've done, I don't know, an overnight shift, you're absolutely shattered, you had a really busy night clocking patients. That's a different type of resilience or than paper rejections, grant rejections. So you could spend days writing a grant application, trying to formulate it in the best way possible, trying to meet all the criteria of the grant awarder. And then You just think, I got nothing for it. I got no feedback. I got no grant. And I think there's a statistic, I haven't checked whether it's accurate, but it's common amongst the academic community that only 1 in 5 grant applications will be accepted. So you have to learn to. I remember the first time it happened, I felt low for a good month, actually. I felt like a personal rejection. And then after about getting 4 more, I think the fourth one was about 10 minutes, to be honest, the grief. Um, and you'd be pleased to know that on the fifth one, I actually did get a very large grant, which was, I was over the moon, almost to the point of disbelief, thinking, really? But I think I wanted to mention here that the 4 failures before you get a success are not a waste of time, even though I might
Yeah,
have thought so at the time, because each time you're learning how to compose it better. You're doing the background research into particular methodologies, and that research into the methodologies themselves mean that in any future application, that methodology might be even more appropriate, and you already know a bit about it. So retrospectively, I can say it now, you do learn along the way, but all the knockbacks require a special form of resilience, I think. That's what I learned in my 6 years here.
yeah, absolutely. I guess it's a muscle that you learn how to flex and build, taking the hits and the rejections.
And even when the grant comes, there's all this sort of technical,
Yeah,
financial, strategic, of and there's huge responsibility as well, different to clinical work. Sometimes a lot of people are salaried, other people are independent practitioners like the GPs. But again, when you've got a grant, you might be employing a postdoc. You have people looking to you for continuity, and then you have to learn all the HR rules, and you're thinking, blimey, I didn't know I needed to know all of this just to do this work. But it is
absolutely.
rewarding. And I think there's this other skill that surfaced. I think my clinical work as a doctor very much depended on my oral skills in articulating, whereas obviously in academia, it's more about, can you write well? Can you articulate it in writing? So that is again a slightly different focus. And again, because my work was rooted in educational philosophy, I actually had analysis paralysis when I was writing my PhD, because one of my PhD supervisors was an educational philosopher who writes very beautifully and with a lot of conviction, not very succinct though. And clinicians like to grab things that are quite succinct. It's like, give me the executive summary, please. And I couldn't find my voice in between this. And so I didn't write anything for a few years. I was a very bad PhD student. But then I thought, no, who is my audience? And my audience are clinicians. So then I found my voice. So sometimes you have to start to think that way.
Mhm. Absolutely. And in terms of kind of your own professional development as you go through, how do you develop you going forward?
Again, this is the one of the things I'm very committed to exploring academically, because I took the role as professionalism lead in 2020 because I believe we need to redefine professionalism. It is commonly understood as being following the regulations and following the law of the land. And that is true. We do need to do that. But when you speak to colleagues, they'll say if professionalism feels like it's the mafia or the clergy dictating how you should live. And I thought, well, no, it's so much about character. And then when we look at character and how we reflect on what's happening to us and how we navigate the system and navigate the world, that is professionalism too. So I then use and contrast these two because they have to work together. But we need to develop the pedagogies to teach character, to teach better professional virtues. And I'm delighted to have been involved with the Jubilee Centre for Character and Virtues, which is the School of Education at Birmingham University that does this very well. And so I've been able to to adopt the way they do this and apply it to medicine, which has been fabulous, and then develop a curriculum called Radial Holistic Professionalism that I then teach to the medical students. And a lot of it is about formation, professional identity formation during medical school, but also afterwards, because sometimes life experience makes you become a better doctor. And I feel we're continuously on a journey, although we speak about professional identity formation largely in the context of being a medical student. It continues. I feel it continues even past retirement. Maybe when you become more elderly and you need healthcare yourself, you start to reflect on how you used to deliver that healthcare. So this journey of formation and professional development is ongoing. And I think one of the beautiful, philosophical, almost transcendent things is how beautiful human life is from beginning to end. And to contemplate that, and to contemplate that we have a role in that, a very trusted role as clinicians, it's such a privilege to interface with people's lives through thick and thin. And I feel if you can tap into that way of thinking, it really does give you a sense of meaning and purpose, which I think is absolutely fundamental in carrying on in life. Because if you feel you don't have purpose, that's when people feel disillusioned, demoralized, and burnt out.
A little while ago, we were talking about the experience of learning through being a trustee of an organization, and you mentioned that that was a really interesting experience. Would you like to say a bit more about that?
Yeah, and I guess there's a really interesting story behind it as well. So one of my role models who was so passionate about medical education is Della Fish. And Della Fish died 4 years ago. She had a brain tumor. And even till the end of her life, she had this thirst for books, for knowledge, for reading, for medical education. Because I remember giving her my thesis, and her eyes lit up like a child. It was just so wonderful to see. So anyway, after she passed, she left a significant amount of money to a foundation that she wanted set up. And the purpose of that was to help fund and support projects that aligned with what her life's work was, which was to look at the moral mode of medical practice and training teachers to do that well. So we've set up this charity, the Della Fish Foundation, and it is so interesting being on the other side. So then we devise the forms, the application forms for grants. We look for, does it align with the ethos of the charity? It's so easy to spot the ones that just wanted some money and haven't aligned with the ethos of the charity, and the ones that actually have really thought about it and have thought how the charity can support them with their work. And just being on the other side has been so insightful, but also really encouraging for me to know that we are helping people who are doing aligned work blossom. So then you get momentum going, you get excitement going, and then people begin to want to research this area because there's some excitement, there's some zeitgeist about it. Whereas if you don't start investing in these topics, it's really easy for them to, nothing happens. It's almost as if the stuff that gets researched is the stuff that's funded, not always the stuff that's important.
Thank you so much, Sabena. I have so enjoyed listening to you and having the opportunity to talk to you. Um, Thank you for joining me today. And hopefully people will enjoy watching this video on YouTube.
Thank you.